Hello, my name is Siwen Chen from University of Nottingham, working under the supervision of Associate Professor Simon Laws and Professor Richard Leach. The objective of my research, as well as today's topic, is particle defect detection with the use of convolutional neural networks. The presentation is structured as follows. First, I am going to introduce the entire chain of additive manufacturing process from sample fabrication to defect detection. Then I will speak of the basis for the defect detection pipeline in my research underpins, convolutional neural networks, also as known as CNN. Two different sorts of CNNs have been implemented in my work. One is the modified mobile net for the purpose of classifying images with defects and without into individual sets. The other one is based on a UNet. Being different from classification network, it is capable of segmenting all of the pixels in image into different categories so that the morphology of defects in the image can be identified pixel-wise. Then it comes the experiment and the result in terms of defect recognition against various metrology data sources. At the end of this video, a short summary will be presented to conclude the study. First, we can understand a chain of additive manufacturing in the industry as illustrated. Firstly, parts are being made in accordance with the designed CAD files in the manner of laser powder bed fusion. However, due to the instability of the fabricating process, defects will inevitably form on the surface of the parts. To detect such defects as effectively as possible, we implemented various machine learning methods to measure the result of additively manufactured parts. The recognition result can identify quality of parts and be potentially used to achieve quality control. The basic principle of CNN is, for example, you have an image as input. A set of kernels, also known as filters, are convolved over the image, producing several feature maps. Then those feature maps were passed to a pooling layer where the size of image can be further shrunk. After several alternations of convolutional layers and pooling layers, it will transform into a fully connected layer or a masked image, depending on the type of neural networks. To prepare the database as the input for the classification network, samples had been made of the material Type 64 nominated in our project. A 4.5 mm by 4.5 mm valid area of the sample was measured and split into 20 by 20 blocks. In this manner, 400 grayscale subsectional images were acquired. Then the images were manually labeled as defect images and no defect images with care. In our case, 376 images were labeled as normal images, whereas the rest 24 images were labeled as abnormal images with defects. Then the above 400 images were input into our neural network on the basis of MobileNet, which has a good performance for the classification purposes, with some of the parameters, such as number of layers of the neural network, being tweaked. 90% of the images, which are called training sets, were used for training the neural network, and the rest 10%, which is the validation set, was reserved for the purpose of validation. After experimenting with the most crucial parameters, a 94.93% validation accuracy was achieved, which means the probability that the images from the validation sets are put into the right category is 94.93%. Similar to the pipeline of detecting defects against the Fuchs variation data, another Type 64 sample was measured under an optical system called fringe projection system, and the results were input to the modified neural network as another source. A 12 mm by 12 mm valid area was selected to be studied by the neural network. Then similarly, the measuring result was split and labeled in the same manner. After optimizing the parameters of the neural network, a 96% validation accuracy was reached against the fringe projection data. As previously mentioned, aside from the classification neural network, segmentation neural networks can also be utilized in our research and demonstrate the defects explicitly. UNet, as a newly developed segmentation neural network, is effective for showcasing morphologies of defects. Samples made of another nominated material, Malaysian steel, were measured under Fuchs variation. Height map was constructed to represent the real surface topography, since the result needed to be labeled pixel-wise to achieve accurate segmentation. Then the height map was labeled with the use of image segmenter, which is a built-in tool in MATLAB. Then the image was split into subsections and those images were transformed, for example, flipped, rotated, etc., to augment the database for a more accurate training. As illustrated on the right, the most dominant features, in this case particles, were picked out with the use of image segmenter, and a corresponding mask was created as the labeled image. After the training process, a new test image was input to the neural network, and a predicted masked image was thereafter generated, indicating the result of defect recognition. As seen in the picture on the right, particle features stood out as black spots. To conclude the study, considering the detrimental impact of particles on additively manufactured parts, we aim to be able to detect the particle defects on the surface of samples. 2 CNNs were used due to their suitability and effectiveness in this work. In terms of classification neural network, a 94.93% validation accuracy was achieved against fixed variation data, whereas a 96% validation accuracy was achieved against fringe projection data. With respect to segmentation and neural network, the particle features could be discovered and displayed on the output image, which denoted the feasibility of defect detection with the use of a segmentation neural network.